the brands that really resonate with people do hit that balance of like nostalgia or something you've seen before, but like with that one unique twist.
Yeah, it has some sort of it factor to it.
And it's usually so minor, and yet it really, that's the thing that makes it all feel. But it's like when someone tries to go too fully out of the box, sometimes it can fall flat because it's not tied enough to, I don't know,
relevance.
Yeah, or like what we currently understand.
Be sure to stick around until the end of the episode to find out how you can get a free copy of Amy and Jen's book, Freelance, Business and Stuff. Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm Britton Stepetic, and this is Low Key Legends, the show where I interrogate your favorite creative legends to bring you nuggets of wisdom on your creative journey. Today, I am joined across the screen by the design queens of Southern California, the Hoodzpah sisters, Amy Hoodlum, who you can find stress watching the Lakers in her off time, and Jen, the good hood, who probably wishes she was clanging away on her piano instead of doing this interview. For those who don't know, Hoodzpah is a branding and type design studio based in sunny California. They work with all the clients you know and love, Disney, SeatGeek, Nike, the Lakers, and so many more. They are also the authors of the highly regarded book, Freelance, Business and Stuff, FBOS for short, and no, that's not a disease. Without any further ado, let's get into it.
Okay, I loved that custom intro. Oh my
Loved
gosh.
it, loved
And
it.
Jen absolutely wants to be on the piano instead of at work. She like sneaks out to clang away on the piano, which is in our like shipping kind of section of the office.
Oh, nice.
And actually she has a full album out on Spotify.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
It's breaking
Love it.
news. Breaking news, Britain. We've never released this info before. I want that red banner at the bottom.
No, but I'm one of those piano players that I cannot have anyone watching me. I'll never be able to perform live because I get so panicked that I'm like, and my hands just start running away. And yeah,
Oh my
so
gosh.
it'll never be a live act. It'll always be something that's just, I don't even know, just
Like,
through the
did
waves.
Daft Punk ever do live shows? They did, right?
Surely.
They just wore the
Yeah,
helmet.
they did. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I always
Yeah.
equate Jen to Daft Punk. So it's
Yeah, I love the bands that wear masks or you just don't know their identities. I think the
There's
Daft
something
Punk
fun.
guys, actually their identities are revealed, but there was this band from the 70s called The Residents, and they wore eyeball heads, and literally no one knows who they are.
That's amazing.
to be able to
That's
keep up the
amazing.
ruse is like
Mhm.
what a miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that
It's
so
freeing as well. That's
Yeah.
why having a studio name to hide behind, even if you're just one person, is so powerful, I think. Even as a designer.
That's literally why I chose to go with Rogue. I mean, I love that name because I'm kind of a nerd and like I loved fantasy and Dungeons and Dragons growing up, and the idea of being the shifty rogue who was part of this team but also could like achieve like these amazing things when you collaborate together. So I think of Rogue as like this idea of like doing the unconventional
Yes.
and achieving something great as part of that result.
Yeah. I love that name.
Is your web address going rogue? If not, get that handle. Get that handle. I feel like
I should buy that. That's in all like that's in some of the marketing, and then also like a lot of my social posts, and then
love that.
like I think like a lot of the sign offs is like when I'm doing like contractor negotiations or like intro emails is like go rogue with us. So
Yeah.
things like that are clever.
Yeah, it's so great when you have a good name because the copy does write it.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
But
you
you
need
have to
meet-
be careful that you don't just like roll into like it being so overly cheesy, because it's like you get way too into a theme and then all of a sudden it's like a themed restaurant where it's like there's pirates dressed as waiters or waiters dressed as pirates
Right.
or whatever, and it just like it jumps shark.
It's like Joe's Crab Shack territory.
When you sign the
For real.
contract, we get on the table and everybody sings and dances.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh.
I thought it could be a fun place to start by taking a jump in the time machine, if you will, and thinking about what did you both want to do when you were growing up as kids? Because I'm not sure that you ended up exactly what you may have thought of back in the day.
Oh man, I feel like we've somehow have achieved our dreams because I definitely wanted to be like a Disney or Warner Brothers animator. I used to watch Animaniacs and all the Disney movies. But I also wanted to be a detective with our own agency in our Syracuse, New York attic, and just like spy on the neighbors and like climb trees and like try to listen in on conversations and stuff. I think it's why I love true crime to this day. It's like trying to solve the mystery, you know? What did you want to be with? With
Same
shares,
thing. Oh
right?
yeah,
Like,
we were drawing all the time. Yeah, and yeah, just wanted like I wanted to be a comic artist and like a
That's right,
graphic
yeah.
novelist or like. But it always started as like I just want to draw for a living. I want to be an animator. Wait, there's more graphic novel. Wait, then you get into like doing art for your friends' bands, and then you're like, oh, what is this called? And then I feel like that's the most natural segue into graphic design is making art for friends.
Yeah.
And it usually has like a slight marketing tinge. So
I love this Kevin Kelly quote, but it's like the thing that made you weird as a kid will make you successful as an adult as long as you let it. And I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. Like
That is
I think
brilliant.
back drawing as a kid, I wanted to do comics too, and I didn't get there. I realized that I can only draw so, and I found this love of like web design as a result of college and school and just life in general. But branding and web is where we live, and it's just like this beautiful way to build worlds and kind of do the same thing but with clients.
It's so
I agree
true.
with that. And it is
so
funny
true.
because like every time I see a comedian on TikTok that I think is hilarious, I always try to think of them in the context of like being my everyday friend. And I'm like, or like in high school, and I'm like, these people must have had like not that many friends because they're way too much. You know what I mean?
But they're
it
perfect.
serves them perfectly for an onstage persona.
Yes.
And it's just, you're right, that sometimes the thing that maybe makes you a little bit of an outcast
Yeah.
in life is maybe, I don't know, maybe can be helpful with your career. Who knows?
Yeah. That's like, have you seen The Trip with Steve Coogan and what's his name?
Rob.
Not
I haven't.
Okay, well, they're two comedians. They're pretending that it's off the cuff documentary style going on this like trip together. But it's like two comedians like going on a trip and spending all their time together would be the most insufferable like conversation to be involved in because they're constantly just trying to one up each other. They're never like acknowledging what the other has said.
Yes.
Just like, you know, it's just like a pile on of like, no, this is what would be funny. No, this is funnier. And it is funny because they would be way too much
In person.
but as a career, it's so perfect.
It works great.
It works great. Yeah.
I don't know if you have those friends where you just like are constantly shitting on each other, just like the whole conversation is making fun of each other.
Yes. And it makes you stronger. I think
does.
everyone
Yeah.
needs those friends.
Yes,
It's like if you don't have those friends, you're too sensitive probably.
Yeah.
And it's not going to serve you well because no one is going to tell you the truth.
Yeah, no
and
one's
you're
going to tell you
start,
when you're being an ass, you know? It's
you're going to
just
start
like,
drinking your own Kool-Aid and people are going to get over it.
yeah, for sure.
Well, so essentially you did accomplish a lot of your dreams, which is not generally the case like for most people. And usually it's like that you get like the astronaut or the police as like the kind of stereotypical answer, the American answers. But I think it'd be interesting to kind of analyze like where you came from to where you are now. So who was the first client that ever paid you? I think that may be a nice place to start.
Wouldn't have been Almond, would it? Or was it Almond?
Gosh, it might have been Almond Surfboards.
Yeah.
And that was before we even had, I think, like
Yeah, 'cause you were
Hoodzpah
still-
as like a name.
Yeah.
I was just doing free because I lost my job first. And so
You win.
I win. So I was just doing like, I'm like, I guess I'll just keep designing and start a blog spot and post designs that I just make up, like, you know, free stream of consciousness design and thoughts on Blogspot, and someone will discover me. Well, anyways, somehow I got introduced to these cool guys called Dave Almond and
Dave
Ali. I always call him that. Dave Ali and his crew who started Almond Surfboards in Newport Beach, and they were like, "Oh, maybe you could do some like badges for us." So in the surf and skate industry around here, like. Number one rule of having a logo is riff on that logo and never keep it the same. Like never use the same logo twice, pretty much. So they have all these t-shirts with a bunch of just different reinterpretations of the logo. You never see the same one twice. So I did a bunch of different like little badges for them. I think you're right. I think that might have been the first paid one, if not one of them.
And it was so rewarding too because they were so good at like executing. So they put it on like they burned it into a wooden basket on this beautiful like beach cruiser.
Custom beach cruiser
that they put like a surf rack on, and
yeah,
like it was just, they put it on all these cool applications. And I think, yeah, that was like a really cool first project.
That was cool.
Yeah.
But a lot of the first projects were friends or friends of friends or people that we barely knew through the early beginnings of the social media, like Instagram and Facebook and stuff. So
for sure.
It seems quite a journey going from, I mean, that's a really cool like first client. It's
I
not
know.
like,
I'm like, could it be that our first client was like one of the coolest
Yeah.
potentials that you could get? But Brittany, here's what I'll tell you though. It got pretty uncool after that. So then, so then we had actually I shouldn't say uncool. They were great people, but we had like a
But
mop.
it's not like the glamorous, like we were doing skate decks and like
It was
Yeah.
a wholesale mop catalog. That was our best paying.
oh, that was
first.
But you made that.
clients.
It was so in the way of like we always wanted to do comics. Like we would use any project as a gateway to do something we wanted, even if the client had not suggested it whatsoever.
Which is not the golden rule of doing projects, is like do what you want
No.
in the name of the client. But you
No,
know,
but-
at the beginning you can get away with a lot.
well, and I
Yeah.
think I think one thing that has lasted to this day is like you always want to do something a little bit unexpected and something extra to delight in every project. That's what gets people really excited and wanting to share, and you know, it becomes, you know, a thing on its own, you know, that you don't have to market so hard. So it's like even back then we were trying to do something different and special and unique. So we convinced this mop guy, because he loved our work, which was all just like, you know, just like weird beachy lettering and, you know, stuff like that. And so Jen made all these really cool comic strips within the mop catalog of how to use the
I
different
channeled the
products.
comics. I still had the dream.
So yeah, so it's like not just letting, I don't know, it's like, of course the client's going to come to you with an idea, but half of what we do, if you're really great and, you know,
Is it interpreting that and like adding to it? Yes, and it's the whole improv thing.
it is, yeah, it's saying like, okay, this is a great base idea. I see what you need in order to sell your product, but like, what if we did it in this other way that you never would have thought of, but you're paying me to think of?
Mm-hmm.
And this is what's going to make it really special, and people are not going to throw this away because it's so interesting and funny.
They're gonna keep this mop catalog for years.
Remember, his
Frame it.
testimonial was like, it was like
Was it?
people had like kept this catalog and people were calling him and just saying like, you know, we saw the catalog, we loved it, we love your sense of
We
humor.
laughed.
Yeah.
We saw this billboard the other day. No, but I was thinking about when you were saying things that are memorable, that stand out, you would never expect, is what captures people's attentions usually for brand identity work. We were passing by this billboard and it just said "ho," and then it was like Martinez and Wilson divorce attorneys, and instead of it being like "ho ho ho," it just said "ho" with Christmas ornaments
with a Santa hat on the O, and it was just like,
oh my gosh, like hysterical. And it's the only season you could get away with it. Otherwise, I'm sure it like, are there like decency laws around?
well, it
that
didn't
kind
have
of
an
thing?
E on it, right?
Exactly.
And I
Exactly.
think, you know, it's just,
It's
so
a-
it was a double entendre, and the parents get to laugh and the kids don't understand it. It's the perfect time of year. What a funny billboard.
Yeah.
a little Santa humor. Love
yeah,
that.
exactly.
I mean, taking a look at your current roster, I don't know the most recent projects that you've put out, but I mean, I saw Industrial Light and Magic, Disney, SeatGeek, the Lakers. I mean, I have to think that little Amy and Jen from the past are looking up and are super proud. How do we go from like the surf shops and like the magazine to working with those incredible big like household names? Like, what are the biggest takeaways along the journey in that evolution?
Yeah, it is interesting because it's like it's so easy to prescribe something after the fact, but it's like you never really know because every person is so different, and it's, you know, like what's the saying, like opportunity meets preparation and things like that. It's like it could have been a number of things, and it could have gone completely the opposite way, and we could have been as talented as we are and still gotten nowhere. And you know, everyone always talks about like, you know, some of the greatest musicians are playing for, you know, change in the subways, you know, so it's like it's not just a talent thing, although I do think we're good at what we do. But yeah, it is interesting to look back and try to like, you know, ascribe like, okay, what were some of the things that we did that worked out well, you know, that lended. And I think for sure we wouldn't be anywhere if we didn't have the mentors that we have. And of course, I don't think at the time I would have called them a mentor, but they were people in our lives who were further along in their career than we were, that were generous with, you know, just kind of answering questions. And it was never like me calling them and saying, hey, can we do an hour call and I can ask you questions? It was always just off the cuff.
It was usually like casual local meetups. So
Exactly.
like people on Twitter, we would follow locals on Twitter who were in the design world. And I have to give this to Luke Hodgson, who worked at OC Metro.
Yeah.
He reached out to us when we used to work for an old coupon clipper called the OC Gazette, our first design job ever, where we apprenticed and they taught us design on the job. Well, he reached out to us there because he was working at a rival I feel so
Oh,
bit
no.
trapped.
Rival.
So there was a street gang system in Orange County around the
was
local
turf
magazines.
and they had their turf, we had our turf.
No, but he was the creative director there, and he reached out to us, found our emails, and was like, "Hey, we also work on a magazine. Do you guys want to do little fun like creative sprints?" We're like, "People do this? Like, people make like work friends that are competitors, and they just want to like hang out and make art on the side."
And just like share stories or share troubles or be able to email someone if they have a question.
And I think that was so cool. He started that idea, and then we
Yeah.
kind of took that and ran. We were like started looking people up on Twitter and trying to find people in the area. And so we found a lot of people who worked in the local tech scene at like the Google office and
Or
at startups
Apple.
around here, Josh Hemsley, Aubrey Johnson, Joel Buchelman, people like that. And they were just doing these little Twitter meetups, what they called them. And so we started attending, and we quickly realized we had nothing to offer to the conversation. So we would just kind of listen and be like, "Yeah, don't you remember in Clueless when she gets in the car and he's like, 'Do you like Billie Holiday?' She's like, 'I love him.'" That's what it was like. Where we're like, "Yeah, Ruby on Rails. Isn't that fun?" I specifically remember writing Ruby on
Me
Rails
too, and being
down.
like, "What?"
Being like, I should Google this later. But I think just being in that group with them and listening to what they had to say and hearing them talk very frankly about their jobs and what was going on in the tech scene, we were just like, wow, we are so far from knowing anything about anything. And I think it kind of helped you know what to even think about. It's like you don't even know what you don't know until someone brings it up. So
Yeah, for sure.
did I kind of like waylaid your answer.
No,
But
that
you
was
were
it.
talking about mentors, friends.
Just
Mhm.
like having people that know more than you. And honestly, when we went to those hangouts, I didn't say a word. And then finally Mark Hemian, he was like, "Hey, you, what do you do?" And I was like, "I'm Amy and I run Hoodzpah." And he just like, Mark Hemian, if you know him, he's the kind of guy that's like, it feels like he's interrogating you, but he just wants to get really deep really fast. He's like, "Well, what kind of work? Well, who are your clients?" And I'm just like, I like felt like such like a gotta prove myself. Well, I'm Amy, and and I think he was like, "Well, what do you charge?" Because I think he just knew that we were young and green. And I think I was telling him kind of what we're doing, and he was like, "Yeah, you got to stop doing that." Like essentially, and he was just like, "That's way too low. This is what the standard hourly is." We just kind of like had some frank discussions, and I mean, they were so frank because they were in tech. Everything was like, I make this hourly when I do freelance, and
everything was like uncover the data.
Yeah.
Like research, like transparency. And we're like, yes, tell us everything.
Yeah.
So whereas I think in Brandon and that world, everyone's a little, or I guess used to be a little bit more secretive. It was just a little bit more.
I think it's just so nebulous, right? Because it's it is just so nebulous of like, what does strategy cost? Well, I don't know. What's your process look like? And like, you know what I mean? It's just a lot harder to tie it to maybe something like you get 5 web pages like that. It's not really like that sometimes, So I think it was when we started to make that transition into brand, then it was like finding, okay, who do we look up to in this space? And then like kind of following those people on Twitter and just kind of like listening to what they had to say, and honestly going to conferences, we never were raised, like we didn't go to college. So we were never kind of like taught like, oh yeah, go to a conference. My mom like fell into that like Tony Robbins like grift for a while. So I think I was always just a little bit wary. She was also in that, what was the guy that was like, you donate 10% of your income to me and the Lord will bless you. And she had some of those tapes too. So I think I was always just a little bit wary of like, let's all meet up together and you'll get the secrets to success, Yeah. But yeah, we went to Creative South. Mike Jones invited us to give a little talk. And I was just like, wow, conferences are so helpful. Why have I been like so negative about this? It's
not
just
so much even for the talks, more for, I mean, I guess some of the talks, depending on what kind of talks they are, but more for just meeting people.
Yeah.
Again, meeting people,
The
talking frankly. And I think the easiest way to meet people and start talking frankly is to walk up to someone and you have to start talking frankly. I think that kind of community doesn't exist in every area. We've been lucky enough to find some. And you're doing a great job, obviously, at just starting these kinds of conversations because you've started a podcast. But I think if people are in an area where they're like, well, that doesn't exist here, it's like, well, then maybe that's the opportunity for you to start that, where you're at.
Especially like the world is so digital that you can reach out, offer someone a virtual coffee or just like, hey, I love your work. I would love to shoot the shit and ask you these couple of questions. And I think networking is absolutely essential. And you can have a quote unquote mentor that like guides you through like a large majority of like learning, or you can have like 1,000 little mentors who each gave you just one little bit of advice here or there, and they're all valid and it's all like incredibly useful. You're getting this education that is life-changing in a way just by connecting with people that you want to be connecting with anyways.
Yeah.
People are kinder than you think, so they'll give you life lessons and values if you ask.
Yeah. And if they don't, then it's like no sweat off your back. The least you could do is ask, and now you know that they're no longer your hero and they get unfollowed on everything.
You can privately cancel them if you want. Yeah.
Kidding. But it's like, yeah, some people don't have the time, but generally I think you're right. I think generally like people are looking for connection, and I think, you know, especially as you get more on in your career, it feels so good to be able to help someone who's just starting out like that. Turning into like more of a teacher it just feels so good to be able to like help someone out in the ways that you wish you had that info like 10 years ago. So
having said that, I think some of the best advice we've ever gotten is not from people who were like bastions in our industry. It was like lesser known people, some people who weren't even designers, just like, you know, business people in their own right. So I think there's probably a lot of people in each of our lives who could give us great advice, but we just haven't really like flagged them. They're like, oh, they know something.
Yeah.
Like, you know, or we haven't just like talked openly about what we're going through so that other people that we wouldn't even expect might be able to weigh in. And we're not just looking, you know, sometimes you're just thinking, oh, well, I have to talk to so-and-so who is at the pinnacle of my industry. Otherwise I won't get the answer. It's like, well, they found their way there. I don't know. Would it be a little bit rude to even ask them like, hey, how did you get all the way to the top so I can get there and potentially take some of it? I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
It's like if you think about Spielberg, apparently he just snuck onto the lot. Like he was obsessed with movies. He snuck onto the lot. He basically was on a tour and just got off the cart and just wandered in.
Really?
And then somebody thought he was like a page and asked him to like get something.
Yeah.
So he just kept showing up and basically just like took over a room as his office.
He was like a bus.
Yeah.
Or what do you call it? Like a send boy. I don't know what you used to call it. Yeah.
And it's like he didn't necessarily, I don't think he went to school for film like George Lucas did. Maybe he did later on, but like he was young at that time. And
isn't that the premise of the Arrested Development? The daughter, maybe she like goes to Hollywood and she's like, she is an executive, and they're like, wait,
that's right.
Do you even work here?
That's so funny. That's really funny. We got to look up if that's inspired by Spielberg. But I think it's one of those things where it's like sometimes it's like if you know the way that everyone else did it, you're not going to potentially do it in a new and unique way.
There's something
right?
really pure and unadulterated about not knowing what to do, because you're gonna just kind of use your logic to come up with the best answer, and it actually might be like counter to what everyone else is doing.
It's like how children don't understand war because it makes no sense for how that would solve any situation. It's like that sort of pure, able to see through the bullshit. Like,
so speaking of ILM. So when we worked with Industrial Light and Magic, this was the funny thing. We did our discovery. We interviewed, everybody, and everybody was so I cannot speak higher of a group of people. The culture they have there. I mean, I got to give them props.
They're so talented.
But anyways, we interviewed John Knoll, legendary John Knoll, who was one of the brothers who created Photoshop and now is one of their lead creative
executive producers.
Executives, yeah. But he was talking about how he was a young kid. He loved Industrial Light, Magic, Star Wars, all that. And so he just like, I forget if he got a bus ticket or his parents were visiting LA and he was with them or something like that. There was a lot of stories like this, and he just showed up to the old Kern Optical building where ILM used to be hidden in, and was just like, hey, I just love everything you all do. Can I get a tour? And they just gave him a tour, and he was so obsessed and like well versed in their world because of his obsession that they just he like wrote them, or they stayed in contact. And then later on, when they found out that him and his brother were developing this incredible software, it was like, oh, well, gosh, just come, and they eventually worked there. But it's like, yeah, just show up. What's the worst that could happen? Just reach out. What's the worst that could happen?
Someone's going to show up at our front door and be like, we didn't mean that. We really
didn't
mean
careful.
That. I think it's like metaphorical show up, metaphorical for sure, especially this day and age.
Two things come to mind. I think it's like, it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. And then I guess like the modern like New York equivalent would be like, fuck around and find out. Like
these are rogue wisdom snippets.
Yeah, exactly.
Straight from Rogue Studio.
Hot takes for everyone. But I do think that's true. There's always like a third door to try and get sort of what you want without being like, I want this from you. When we all need and want something from people that we're interacting with. And that can be as simple as just like friendship or an engagement like that. Or it could be that I'd really love to work with your company and I think that I could help. But it's just like finding the right way to get your foot within that door. If you can figure out a way to get in touch with the people that really like inspire you or people that you want to work with, generally you have some sort of connection to each other that like makes it very easy to work with. So like in the case of like, if you want to work with an illustrator and you do branding, it could be that you could trade services and they can make something for you. You can make something for them. Same thing with a website. If you do development and someone does design, you can just trade services. Not everything has to be for money. And we've done personal projects with others and just traded services just because we liked each other's work. I think there's any number of opportunities out there as long as you kind of think outside the box. There's a book on this that I haven't read. It's in my queue called The Third Door.
Book on this I haven't read that I'm gonna read. I read the Dust Jacket and have a synopsis for you. Every time I say I read an article, I saw something on TikTok is what I mean. I saw it on TikTok. I was telling someone the other day, I'm like, no, I get my news from SNL. They were like, that's not good. I was like, no, you'd be surprised. I get really good coverage. I feel the most unbiased. It does feel the most unbiased because they're just looking for the best punchline. Yes. And that's honest. What serves the joke?
Well, comedians, I feel like are like, in a way, like modern day philosophers. They have to like look at the world in a way, analyze it, and then instead of being like, you know, Marcus Aurelius, like very serious, they just make it funny. So I mean, it's a really digestible way to analyze the world and all of its problems and take away some insights as long as you're paying attention to the story.
Totally. That's why I loved Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee with Seinfeld, because certain of the people he would interview, you could tell like they were students of the physics and science of jokes. Because like one of them would say a joke, they were like, no, this is a better setup. And then the other one would like fix it. And then they're like think tanking it real time. Not all of them. In fact, a lot of the people he interviews, you can tell they're not naturally funny. They have to really work at it in their like spare time. Yeah. And then some of them, it's just like spewing out because that's all they do. It's like, and it was always the least likely people that were, it's like some people are funny in conversation. And then some people know how to like you said, observe and digest something very complex and find the humor. I feel like you're that Jen, you're able to like observe and like you write hilariously. So yeah. I love comedy. Yeah, me too. I bought like books on it at one point. I was like, it would be great. It's funny to read people trying to like teach you how to be funny. Yeah. Okay. I love it. Yeah. Like what was some of the stuff in there? She's like, you have to start with a universal problem, this lady. She's like, then you have to find the unique, like, I don't know, like your unique perspective on it. Anyways, that's why there's still new jokes about like, he's a man and we're women and women are like this and men are like, you know, it's like how many more jokes can we possibly support about this? But it's like, it's the same thing with brand though. I feel like we were doing a live brand workshop with Gerbil. And one of the kind of brand trait words was authentic, which I know is a loaded and overused word. And I think it's the word of the year. You know how Time picks a word of the year, and which is so funny. It's like we've drove it into the ground. But they were like, doesn't everyone use that word? And I'm like, yes, but there's only so many words. And honestly, it's just like with music. There's only 7 notes, unless you're in the Indian scale, which they put all kinds of in between ones, which is amazing. But it's like there's only 7 notes and you like repurpose them. Yeah. And it's how you combine those and then how you interpret into design and language that makes it unique. But let's be honest, we're not going to come up with a revolutionary new word that someone hasn't hit on for a brand trait, likely. Right. I mean, and it's the same thing with like Myers-Briggs, like personality tests. There's like 8 potentials, right? It's like you're nice, you get them, you're pushy, you're whatever. Like extrovert, introvert, like there's the little, it's like there's only so many things you can call. And yet we're all so unique. Yet we're all so unique. I do think there's like interesting about that with brand, because it's like the brands that really resonate with people do hit that balance of like nostalgia or something you've seen before, but like with that one twist, unique twist.
Yeah, it has some sort of it factor to it.
And it's usually so minor, and yet it really, that's the thing that makes it all feel. But it's like when someone tries to go too fully out of the box, sometimes it can fall flat because it's not tied enough to, I don't know,
relevance.
Yeah, or like what we currently understand, you know? I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I'm always thinking about that because sometimes I worry, I'm like, am I like wild enough with my like brand
decisions?
You know? Yeah, it's like sometimes you see work where you're like, this stuff is wild, you know, but then you realize like half of it's not applicable and will never get made. That's one thing I've learned the more I do this, the longer I do this, is like now you'll see a brand portfolio post. You're like, that's not real. That's not real. That never got made. This whole thing is mock-ups. No client approved any of this copy. It's just to make the portfolio post longer.
Which
like,
we've all done it before. We have all done it before.
No,
but when it's on a high caliber, that's when I'm always shocked.
And it's sometimes so slap dab. Like you'll see the mock-up where it's like, it's the mock-up's not even done well. I'm like, oh man, it's just, it kills me now. But I think the thing that I find comfort in is like, the things that I really resonate with are, it's not like they're completely reinventing the wheel. It's just, like you said, Jen, like a new view scope of
a new
thing.
spin on the thing that we already know very well.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's like perspective in a way where it's like perspective is so individualized because we all have our own unique experiences. There's only one of us. You put a couple people in a room, they're going to come up with something creative because that just multiplies it. So it's kind of, in a way, it's not like 1 + 1 = 2. It's like 1 + 1 = 3 or infinite possibilities, as long as you're hodgepodging your own unique perspectives into something that feels original. And that just comes with seeing the trends, analyzing what the market is, and then making something that you personally resonate with and that applies to whatever work that you're doing. Everything old is new, and then everything can be made into something that is unique as long as it's tied to a certain perspective.
Totally.
Oh yeah, that's so true. I love that. Well, even fashion that's cyclical, like we're seeing all the baggy pants come back, like low rise is back. They're doing it. Low rise, no more cropped. You can't wear crop no more. And it's funny because even though it is so similar, there's always a slight spin on the silhouette or how it's executed. Like it's like you still couldn't wear Jinkos. Yeah, you couldn't pull out the old Jinkos
You
and
just
say like, yeah.
So it is funny. It's like it's the same, but it's different. Same as it ever was.
Exactly, it's true. I think that Gen Z would think that my pants are too tight, but I don't care. I think
you do what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
But where was I going? I think I'm gonna jump, just because we were talking about style and perspective. I can't help but notice that there's this like classic Americana influence in your work. Did that happen to come about from growing up in Tennessee? Where does the Hoodzpah style originate from?
Interesting.
It's a lot of different things.
And
we moved around a lot.
We did. We moved around a lot, and we saw. And I'm always so thankful that we saw so much of the country at such an early age, like New York, Wisconsin, Kentucky, Tennessee. Because that was Nashville is the closest city to Bowling Green, Kentucky, and we were born in California.
We'd visit there because our dad was always there. So and then we moved to California.
Yeah,
but I think especially in Bowling Green,
Kentucky.
Everything in the area we lived in Plano, Kentucky, and was a little bit older.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we grew up kind of with our grandma, living at our grandma's house, and she had a lot of old cool stuff. And I just think we were always so like the detective agency thing.
Yeah.
We would always be rifling through grandma's stuff. Like, this is her private stuff. Like, if I ever had kids, I think the first thing I would tell them is privacy is a real thing that we all need to respect. Because I know what I used to do. We've all been there, like going under your parents' bed, looking through all their things. It's like, you're just so curious about like, who are these people really? So anyways, we would go through all of grandma's old like newspaper clippings. Yeah. And I think we were just fascinated by like old stuff. I don't know why. But also in Kentucky, I will say, growing up at our high school that we went to for 2 years,
Greenwood High.
I was like about to say it, and then it just slipped my mind. Anyways, all of the kids there were obsessed with classic rock. I don't know why, if this was a thing.
Well, there was a big group of them anyway.
There was a big group, more so I think than most normal high schools.
Yeah,
like, sure, NSYNC was there, like Limp Bizkit was there, but Led Zeppelin was hot and heavy.
Oh my God.
So I think like
and Grateful Dead. Like it was like, yeah.
And because we didn't have cool stores and everyone didn't have like enough money to go to the mall and go to Lucky Brand or whatever it was called, the Buckle, and like get the expensive stuff, we would go to Goodwill and get like a
it was like the Weezer look. You would go to Goodwill or get some polyester men's pressed trousers and an old baseball tee. And always the old graphic tees. Yeah. That was the big thing, old graphic tees. And I think all of our design language was informed by the old graphic tees, the Goodwill. Yes. And it all comes back to the Goodwill. It does. Yes. And I think even like searching for music, like back then, like you would go to an old like thrift store and look through the records and you couldn't listen to it. So you would just kind of look at the cover and think, this looks cool. I think there's just a lot of like input, just trying to be cool, but not knowing where to find it. And just like looking through old people's things to hodgepodge together an identity because your grandma wouldn't take you to Dillard's.
Damn it, Grandma.
She did once a year. I have to give it to her. She did once a year. She tried to like, Grandma was so funny because she had this big, beautiful house, but she grew up in the Depression. So she was always trying to get a deal, even at Dillard's. I'm like, Grandma, this cashier does not have the power to give you a price cut. Like, she does not have the authority or the power. You're not at the swap meet. You can't negotiate the price. This is the final price. Oh, but I learned so much from her for sure. I think you're right, Jen. And I think that also just like when we moved back to California when we were in high school, it's like Orange County specifically has such a huge custom culture. So it's like hot rods, custom bikes, customizing your surfboards. People make and shape their own surfboards. There was like this huge culture of like creating your own thing from bits of something that already exists. So like hot rods are a great example. Like, you're taking the base of whatever it is, a Triumph or a Harley or a Panhead or whatever you're going to do, but then you're completely decking it out to be something completely unique to you. And I've always thought that was so cool. It's like, how do you take something and make it your own? And I like our grandpa, he used to go to the dump in Warren County, Kentucky, and just like get old bicycle tires. And he built like a working buggy, like a horse buggy. Yeah, a little buggy. And it had like regular bicycle tires on each side. And then like, I don't know where he got the seat. It was like this seat from an old like bench seat from an old truck. Yeah. And so I think that was just always innate in us is like, how can you take something that you have and make it a little bit nicer? Because you don't want to go out and just buy something. It's like, how do you make it your own and make something cool, Yeah.
Beautiful.
What about Rogue? What about Rogue Studio? Where does the Rogue Studio look come from?
It comes from me being obsessed with jazz and hip hop, for sure.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
Source material.
Like, the Rogue style is like fundamentally like jazz. It's all asymmetrical. And like it drives some people absolutely batshit crazy. I hate grids. Like I don't design anything on a grid until after like it kind of like not gets approved, but like halfway through that process, I'll be like, all right, I guess I have to turn on a grid because my developer will kill me if I don't start like making this actually like functional. So in the branding process, it's all about like vibe. And like obviously there's tangible goals, but a lot of the questions that I ask are trying to get to the fundamental question of like, who is the audience and what do they actually care about? What is the perception and the feeling that you want to resonate? And distilling that down into like one core feeling. And if we capture that feeling, it's basically a win. Obviously, we have to do a lot more work after that, but that's what we do in branding. We translate that to web, and it's all this tempo, this vibe, this feeling, and trying to capture that. So like in every post that I do, there's always music, and it's usually like some form of like lo-fi or jazz or hip hop, and like how that like connects to the animation or like the feeling of the project. So we even do silly things like making playlists for projects and listening to the music while we're working on that project.
Oh,
so
that's cool.
It's just silly, but it's fun. It gets you.
I love that. But it gets you into the zone. Like, when I work on Disney projects, like I'll try to watch movies in the vein of what I'm doing, or same with ILM. Like I was watching all kinds of documentaries, watching all their movies, just like you want to immerse yourself in it. Yeah. So one girl said, so in one of our discovery questions that we recommend to people, which by the way, they're fluid. It's really just conversation starters, but like we gave people a list of questions just to like get them started. But it was like, if you had asking the client, like if you had a like a song that encapsulated your brand that plays like during the halftime commercial that you get or whatever, or it's like your walkout theme song for the company at the like company like rally or whatever, and they have to answer it. She goes, well, I asked my clients this question, and then when I present a round one proof, I turn on the song they told me while I'm presenting the proof.
What?
I was like,
That's
okay, this
amazing.
has just elevated it to a next level. And
Next
it kind of
level.
sounds like what you're saying, but I'm like, I love that. A lot of design, and especially with brand identity, which is so personal, it is mood setting. And if you don't set the right mood first and you come in too quick with like, here's the answer, like I feel like you just like, you blow it. Like you've got to like ease people in because it's so delicate and they're like, everyone's so tender.
Yeah.
And you have to be careful. Yeah.
It's a little foreplay in the meeting before like the big reveal.
Exactly.
Can you identify like what the evolution of Hoodzpah has been?
I think there's some big ones that we specifically like took note of and like intentionally pivoted from. When we started, Hoodzpah was very much about me and you, just because we were just like showing people what we did, and we were very like open. We did a lot of posts about ourselves, not to promote ourselves,
Really
but
just to show how we made things or to kind of like share the work. And it was Instagram era. So of course you showed yourself, like it was just kind of like how it was.
And it was very much like, this is our style. This is what we like to do. There's a lot of, and there still is a lot of passion projects. We still do that to inform the kind of work we want to get. That's just an obvious kind of like thing that a lot of people do.
And it's just fun to make stuff just for the sake of it.
Exactly. But I think at some point we realized, like, if it's just about people coming to us to only do our style, like a specific style, which I know we still have that, and people mention all the time, this looks like Hoodzpah did it, which I actually think is like, it's cool to have that. But we didn't want it to go so far into that where literally everything looked the same and we could only attract a certain niche group of people. So after a while we were like, okay, we can't just keep doing like local like handcrafted
It was all like surf skate
restaurants, hand-drawn logos and lots of intricate badges. You remember the badge era? You remember?
Yeah.
We were all there.
There's badges on everything. Like,
Put a badge on everything.
Yeah.
And it was a great time to be alive.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, it was fun. And we still make badges, but I think we were just like, okay, if we want to get a different level of caliber of client, this can't be all that we can show.
Yeah, I think we were just
our
realizing that
portfolio.
like the people who want this kind of work are usually always small, like more craft-based businesses,
Which is
was
great.
fun. But we also were like, we know we could do like the bigger projects, like doing the more, maybe like the simpler, more minimal logos, or like, just like the bigger systems where it's like they trust us with setting, type, color, editorial layout, like all those kind of things.
Shebang.
And with the kind of work that we had at the time, we were realizing it looked like that's all we could do, and it was just kind of attracting only one kind of client. So we're like, we really need to branch out and show all the different styles we can do, not just keep taking all these projects that have come just from like the personal projects that we did. So I think we just realized like, people don't know what you can do until you show them. So we started just like taking it upon ourselves to like, how do we go after clients that have these different kinds of work that we want to get, and mainly like the more built out projects, right? That was kind of the thing.
And treating it a little bit more seriously. I think it came hand in hand also with treating it less like, all right, we're making a logo, and treating it more as a true brand exercise. It was also just a growth in knowledge as well. Like, because we didn't start as brand identity designers. I didn't even know what that term meant. I knew what a logo was, and I knew that I could do graphic design. We were graphic designers. We did a lot of illustration. And then at some point, someone asked us to do a logo, which we had never thought of even offering as a service specifically, and then we started doing logos more as one-off, and people kept coming as a one-off request. And then we started doing the upsell where we were like, but just for a fraction more, you could get a package. And like, we kind of moved into that, and then it gets a little bigger, and then it attracts a little bit of larger client. But I think all the best opportunities we got to grow our client base beyond what was just like everyone saw that we could already do was just having connections and friends that we had already done right by in a smaller instance, who moved on to a different company that was bigger, that was larger, and they knew we could do it even though the current work didn't show it yet. And so I am grateful for those people that we stayed in contact with.
Well, even like just like my friends Nicoletto's, they started their own pasta company, Danny and Ryan Nicoletto, and we were friends from the music scene in Nashville. Like, we met ages ago. And we just used to go to shows together, and then they decided just to stop going on the road. Like, one of the brothers worked for BMI, and then the other one was a guitar tech on the road
for Jimmy Eat World.
Yeah. Actually,
it all comes back to Jimmy.
Yeah. Yeah, all those kind of bands. And I think he was just like wanting something a little bit more permanent. Their father had just passed, and they were kind of looking to do something that could like honor his legacy and kind of take some of the money that he had left to them and like invest it in a cool way. And so they started a pasta company, and they knew us from like helping our friends in that scene do like, you know, album covers and like posters and stuff like that. So they were like, oh, can you do us a logo? Then they came back 2 years later. Oh, can you like, you know, do type and color and give us, you know, like
packaging?
Yeah, packaging. And then, you know, 5 years later, we got to do a full brand refresh. Like that was probably 2 or 3 years ago. And like, that was my chance to really like, okay, they have the budget now because they had been in business for like, you know, a set amount of years. We really knew exactly what to do at that point. We were no longer kind of like young and green. And it's just like, when you have friends that are doing really cool things, or you keep in touch with people, like that is just, those are the best projects. I feel like, you know, it's just like, there's that trust there. And that's one of my favorite projects to date. Like it just turned out so good. They just trusted the process so well. And yeah, like those projects are definitely milestones. People refer to that work all the time.
It really does sound like your network works for you. And you had mentioned kind of just reaching out to people, going to meetups. Is there anything else that you're doing like self-promotion wise that is helping you get these dream projects that you want to come back to you and do more of? You had mentioned kind of expanding the logo to a full brand system, and then that continues to build upon each other and evolve. But I guess back to my original question was, how are you marketing this studio in order to kind of find the right people in like those target areas that you're looking for?
Honestly, I don't know if anything we've ever done has been super targeted. It's been more just through, I don't know, consistency over many years, slowly becoming more and more recognizable, because it's never the person you think who recommends us. It's usually a junior designer who's like, hey, have you heard of these people? Passing it up the chain. And I think we're still like, we got to keep in touch with the junior designers in the world.
Absolutely.
And it's like, you could say that we're wasting our time on TikTok, which I'm sure we are. But
that's what it's for, Jen.
But I think the next gen of junior designers are there.
Well, that's the thing.
It's like, but go ahead. Oh, I fully agree with you. I think it's like, it was this steady, like we just are constantly sharing. And I think sometimes you can think like, oh, Instagram is a waste of time. And it absolutely can be. And it's not like you should live or die by how many followers you have, but you don't have to have a lot of followers to have a really great just network of people that are rooting for you. You know, you just need to have one person who knows what you can do and just be constantly reminding them of like, hey, we just finished this project. Hey, we just did this.
And I think that's one thing we were good at, is just literally constantly sharing it.
Constantly talking
and finding new and clever ways to not just be like, here's an official case study, but like, oh, here's a little behind the scenes, like making it a lot more casual and like just welcoming. Like, and I think that's what our approach has always been. Instead of like the cold email, it's like we go to a meetup, we meet someone who meets someone who meets someone who meets someone. It's like we're very much the stealth, like rogue way that you were talking about, of like sneaking into places and just being like, hey, everybody, what's up? But it is interesting. All of our passion side work, stuff that we just enjoy and love, has totally served us, but it took years to build up like a volume of that. And then when the person comes along, you're like, damn, we have so much to show them. So all of the years of doing the 10 by project, which is was started by Eric Mortensen, Skinny Ships, and a third person I always forget, and I'm sorry, but it's where they invite artists to reimagine their favorite albums from the year. 10 by 18 was 2018, 10 by 19, blah, blah, blah. Well, they didn't invite us. Amy saw it and did it as like, hey, I love this project, so I'm going to do like a fan version. And she would tag them, just say like, great job, and here's mine. Which I got to give Amy props for. She does this kind of stuff all the time.
When you say that, it always makes me, I never thought of it that way, and now it's so embarrassing.
No, but
it
like,
worked. Yeah. And then they were like, they saw that you consistently did it, and they were like, oh my gosh, you should do it next year. Eric was so sweet. He was like, I'll invite you if you want to do it. And I was like, oh, that's so nice. I would love to do it.
How did you know? How did you know after I tagged you
3 times? Anyway, so then they invited you to do it. And it takes a lot of time. So they invite you, you have like a month to do 10 original pieces of artwork in your free time. And it's like, and then you have to count down and post it every day. It's kind of a whole to do. And so we did it 3 years. Well, you did it 3 years. I did it 2 years. But by the end of it, we had like I don't know, I guess 100 pieces of original artwork that was inspired by the music industry. Well, recently, an artist we really know and love reached out and was like, hey, we want you to see if you can do a proposal to do merch for us. We're talking to a lot of studios. Do you have any work you can share? It's like, well, yeah, I've got 100 pieces of self-initiated music-based work that I can show you. That's all very relevant style because it was just the kind of work that we just had fun doing. Same thing with sports. We always wanted to do stuff in the sports space. Well, again, Amy's always the best at personal projects to start. So she would do like personal projects like illustrating her favorite Lakers players and stuff. And then I kind of like jumped on the bandwagon because I also like the Lakers and we would do stuff like that. And then recently a really great athletic group reached out and was like, hey, we want you to do a big illustration project. It's like now we have all that work that we can show, even though, you know, we had never been asked to do it before. So it's like, I guess we made ourselves ready before the call came, you know.
Mhm.
I think you have to, right? Yeah, absolutely. Those are the agencies that I look up to, like, you know, like Young Jerks, like they're making board games. That takes so much time, but no one would ever hire them for that. And I think that's how you have to think of it is like, no one's going to hire me for this unless I show that I can do it, you know? And it's like, I always really admire those people who take it on themselves to just make something. Like Jen I was telling you before we started recording, but Jen put out a full album of music that she wrote and performed in full. And it's just like that, who knows what that'll lead to, you know? I think it's just
nothing.
it's going to be a lot of money sunk into something that I enjoy though. And that's fine. Bad Trifle on Spotify now. Please don't look it up.
Well, we'll definitely shout out your Spotify page, Jen, for sure. But it does seem like that leveraging passion projects led to the paid work. So I'm curious what kind of the business impact of these passion projects has been. And I mean, obviously you've done an incredible amount of self-initiated projects. You have your shop, which was self-initiated, which helped to get you into e-commerce, I'm assuming that like the album work got you into music. These Laker in sports illustrations got you into the door with like SeatGeek and things like that. I mean, it seems like you're kind of self-initiating, creating your dream projects by just like having fun with it. So it seems to me that there's an inherent business value of being beautiful and a business value of just having fun with it.
Oh, 100%. I think it's like clients might be nervous if you presented the idea to them in a vacuum, but when they see all the fun ways you've taken chances for your own business, like I'll never forget Fuzzco. They're an agency on the East Coast releasing their art director's die. And it just had like, it was like a 12-sided Dungeons and Dragons style die with all the different art director feedback on it. And you could just roll it.
Nice.
It would be like, make it bigger or like, you know, change the colors, you know? And I remember just thinking how clever. And so they get all of those types of work or like Datalands, which are, you know, some friends of ours. They do the coolest work. It's these really beautiful, like really intricate data visualizations and motion and like they just make all this beautiful work for themselves. And so it's very clear then, you know, clients can trust that like, oh, wow, this looks great. We should do something like this. But if you present something like that to them in a vacuum without anything to really look at, that's a lot more of a leap for them. So it's like, I think then you're attracting clients who are willing, they want to take risks. That's why they're coming to you. You know what I mean? Totally. So it's like, yeah, for sure. It's like, what's that girl, the woman who did Saltburn, that movie that's just like completely unhinged. It's like, you don't work with that woman, Emerald, unless you know it's going to be like debauchery. You know, like she's not going to have like, I don't hire her to do the Hallmark movie. Yes, Hallmark would never. Yeah. And I just think that's smart positioning, right? That's brand positioning. So it's like, if you're trying to position yourself as something, you kind of have to show that you can do it for yourself a little bit. And a lot of our stuff has led to great work. Like, oh man, like ILM came from our book of all things about, you know, and not even from someone who worked at ILM. Someone who worked at ILM, who in the PR department. His wife was like, oh, you should look into these girls. Like they wrote this book that I read. I really liked it. She must be a designer or she must be a creative as well. Yeah. She told him about it and then he took it to the team. So it's like I thought for sure when they contacted us, oh, they've heard about us from Disney because we've done work with their parent company. So yeah. Anyways, but we've had a lot of people whose partners recommended us. Like they are in a business that's not creative whatsoever.
And then they're like, yeah, my partner, is a graphic designer and loves your work. And it's just like, thank you to the partners doing the Pillow Talk marketing. Like, just
That's a new niche.
yeah,
That's
Pillow
the
Talk
secret.
marketing.
Pillow Talk marketing.
That's where Hoodzpah thrives. It's a really niche marketing that's really hard to pinpoint. But there's no data on it. It's really hard to collect data on it. But
So people at night are just,
yeah.
Exactly. ASMR with it.
Hey, honey, before you go to bed, here's your nasal strip. And also, have you heard of Hoodzpah?
Are you down to get a little tactical?
Sure.
Let's do it. Just looking at ILM as a case study, I'm curious, this ties to the business in general. How many people are at Hoodzpah? There's obviously you two. Who's the rest of the project team?
There's 4 of us. Only 3 of us are like full-blown, full-time designers. So there's me and you who lead brand. Arturo Jimenez, who's an amazing production designer. He's been with us for a long time. I want to say since 2015 or 14.
Mm-hmm.
So he's our junior designer. He handles most of our.
He's a senior designer.
Oh, sorry. I meant to say B. Morgan is our junior designer. And we trained her to design. She started out as more of our office admin, kind of helping us answer emails. She does all the shipping. She manages the shop. She does an amazing job. And she's very creative. And so we started teaching her the programs. And so she does some junior design as well. And then Arturo manages a lot of the retainer clients and ongoing work like that. And then we spearhead all of the brand projects. And we're like you at Rogue, where we'll also tag team in specialized subcontractors per project that
And it's almost always the same people. Like Ethan Silva is like our swing 5th.
he might as well be part of Hoodzpah. I've
Yeah.
thought about a million times, like, we should put him on the website.
Truly. I know, like he really is. Like if we need,
Motion, he's our go-to
he's
guy.
usually who we go to, just because we have like a shorthand at this point. But we also have some other great subcontractors for motion and production design, just from our course, our freelance and business and stuff course. Like we have a plethora of just super talented designers in there. So we usually will tap them because we just know them so well.
And
So-
then we've got a lot of photographers we'll work with if it's a physical thing that needs photography.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, I'll tell you what, we're doing 90% of the work.
I don't think any project we've
Okay.
ever done has been more than 5 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm trying to think. No.
Yeah, no, it hasn't.
But I actually think we save a ton of time by keeping it a focused crew. And that's part of our selling point in our proposals is like, hey, we're a small team, but we only take on limited work. And we actually believe that you save a lot of time and money by not having a lot of middle people misconfusing things and people who don't do design trying to interpret feedback and tell you exactly what to do. I like to be on the call. I don't have anyone project manage. I like to hear from the person, what are the changes, because I need to interpret it and like read between the lines, honestly.
Yeah, totally.
You're not just taking directions, like you're listening and trying to think, why do they need that? And you're asking follow-up questions. It's very much like
Riffing.
it's riffing, it's jazz, it's collaboration.
It's jazz, baby.
Jazz, baby.
Yeah.
It's collaboration. So I think
Long-winded 5. Go ahead.
There's no layer of project management because you're tackling that. What are your individual superpowers and what are you bringing to the agency? Because there's 2 of you. Obviously, you have maybe different strengths in different categories or areas.
Honestly, I think because we're such great generalists, we can almost do any part of the project, either one of us. But I would say, Jen, that you're definitely better at systems, and that's, like maybe the overall brand, like strategy and just holistic feel, like Jen's got a way with words and just like a way of distilling an idea down to where you're like, yes, that's what we need to do, and then I'm definitely better at visuals, not the words.
You're really good. And I mean, you were the first one to do fonts because your lettering is stronger, honestly. Mine has gotten better over the years because I've looked with you and you've critiqued me and we've worked together on it. But you're better at custom word marks and things like that. And honestly, your icon ideas are I'll usually do like simpler ideas, and then you'll take it and add one extra thing, which I think nowadays is almost required. It's like you honestly can't do the simplest, best idea because it's already been trademarked. Let's just be honest. It probably has already been taken.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to do, okay, the best idea plus something. And I think you're really good at adding the plus something that makes it ownable.
Makes it trademarkable.
Exactly. So you're really good at that, and just kind of getting a little bit more creative than I would do.
I do
in a
think
good way.
it's like, but the people I really respect, like our friend Paul, who runs Hype Type,
they're generalists. I feel like there's such a thing now of like, what's your niche? Like, what's your one thing you do? But I feel like all the people that I really admire and respect can actually do a lot of everything. And that's the way that they're able to create such a consistent end product, is that they do see the vision overall, and they're able to tap people in, as needed, but they're able to see the vision overall.
Yeah.
But then again, I was so impressed by the ILM team. They're like 2,000 people on that as a whole, as a company, and then sometimes up to 3,000, because obviously depending on what movie they're making, they hire on freelancers. But it's like the amount of people that have their hands in the pot,
and then it comes out looking so good.
It comes out looking incredible, and
on such a tight timeline.
But it's because they have these incredible leaders like Rob Ridow and John Knoll, and every single art director is just so good at knowing everyone's skills and seeing the big picture.
And I think the only reason we did try and scale, we did think, we're going to be, we used to look up to Focus Lab. We still do.
Yeah.
And think, we're going to be a bigger agency.
And even like our friends, Column 5 locally, they're Josh Ritchie and Jason Lenkow and Ross Crooks. They started this big agency locally. And I think it was always like, we could do that. We could be like them.
And we did. We tried to hire, and literally 2 people in, we were like, we're managing so much. And we don't want to be managing at all. We realized we do a little bit. I have to give Arturo Jimenez props, our senior designer. He's so amazingly self-reliant and manages himself practically.
Yeah.
He's incredible. And I think we do kind of thrive as a team of very independent, and yet we work together, we critique together, but we stayed small and actually scaled back because we do like to do everything ourselves. Honestly, we're a bit greedy, and everyone's like, well, what's the legend? What's the legacy though? How do you keep going after this? It's like, well, we don't probably, it probably dies with us. But to me, it's it's better that way, because it'll be like pushpin graphics with Seymour Schwast, and I forgot who his partner was, where it was so uniquely iconic to this little micro world that they made, and it died with them, but that's fine, because it was exactly what it needed to be for the time, and you couldn't replicate it. Maybe
that's like saying who's going to do Wes Anderson after Wes Anderson. Well, nobody.
Okay, you just
no, I'm just saying I think people are too quick to be you have to be huge to be successful,
or you have to mechanize it, or create a factory system out of it. It's well, no, that's why it's special.
Yeah, right. Right. It's
we don't all want to be Marvel, or we're not a product. Someone was well, how do you productize brand the other day in the Slack? I'm you honestly can't. And they were well, but even see here, this team has productized it. They've made it a sprint and it's a flat fee. I'm well, they've only productized it in the way that you can check out on a website now, but everything else is specialized one-to-one. You can't just hand them something that's pre-made as a brand. You just can't.
I fully agree. I think that if you take the magic out of that and just systematize it, it doesn't leave any room for kind of the creativity, if you will, and the magic moments to kind of come into the work. And I think that's why people hire Hoodzpah, because they're looking for this magic kind of look or spark or what you can do for their brand. And that could be a gigantic brand or a smaller brand, but they're all looking for that same core thing that you bring to the table.
Yeah, for sure.
With bigger brands, I'm sure there's higher levels of bureaucracy involved in kind of getting the idea up the chain. If there's a board of directors, that kind of has to come into play, or whether that's art directors or creative directors that you're working with. What is the process like working with these bigger organizations, trying to get the creative ideas through to the people that are, I guess, the point person or the decision maker?
I find the best scenarios always happen when anyone who has a very high-ranking decision-making power, even if they're not on the creative team, is involved at the beginning for the discovery. Not in every phase of it, because they're probably very busy people, but at least
you would just get an hour with everyone.
An hour.
That's to just let them know, hey, we're invested,
and to hear from them. Yeah. So that's the big thing. All you need is an hour, honestly.
Yeah, you don't
with
need
the
much.
People who are going to eventually see the work and decide, because you really want to get to know them and just establish any level of trust. Just a small, they're going to see your face, see that you're invested in them. You're going to ask them really well-informed questions about them and their company. They're going to say, oh, these people know what they're...
And they'll usually give you one tidbit where you're oh, that was gold. If we hadn't done this meeting, they wouldn't have known to write that in an email, because sometimes they're so in the weeds that they don't even know what the unique special thing is anymore.
Well, and they're used to giving canned answers. So if you tell them to write their responses, you're never going to get the right stuff. It's got to be in a live or a video conversation.
And the great thing is about interviewing stakeholders is that later you can use what they said to help justify exactly why you did it. And you can tie it back to tangible things that they said. Not tangible. Ethereal words.
Ethereal.
I like to quote them. I'm like, you said this and it was brilliant. It was brilliant. And that's why we did this. You're like a lawyer in court. You're like, did you not on the 2nd of October say, and I quote,
Could you read this paper for
I
me?
read that.
I
Yeah, you
highlighted
just
the
put the
portion.
big voice recorder on the table, hit the button.
Totally. But I find that I love being able to tie back to their idea. They know their business better than I ever could. And I think it's, anyone who thinks that it's about what we as brand designers have to say, you're kind of missing the boat. You're trying to help their voice be amplified. So it's like using their own words in the, and it's like, of course, sometimes you're actually helping them see how maybe they are misinterpreting or missing the point. So there's also that, of course.
So I think it's a gentle like highlighting of the
Yes.
positives and then like helping them to kind of slowly disengage from things that haven't served them in the past.
Totally.
But I think the most powerful thing with most of the clients that are bigger is the discovery session, hands down, because all the fears that they have that are riding on this very high risk, high profile project, which brand identity always is, are somewhat put at least damped down because they're like, oh, thank goodness they heard us. They know what we need. They know what we want. They know who our company is. They understand our character, and they're going to use that to inform. So I think that's the most important part. And after that, that a lot of people who eventually will see it and may have some decision might not be involved. And the best case scenario is if the company culture truly does give power and trust to the creative leads that they've hired to do this. And they're the experts, right? So you hope that the CCO and the creative directors and the art directors actually are in charge and are trusted to some level. Now, of course, every CEO and C-suite is going to have opinions, and that's great. But you just hope that it's like they truly have delegated to those people because that's their job role, and that those people will be able to win over and keep those, the C-suite and the stakeholders filled in enough to bring them along in the journey, but also not to tank it with like opinions that might not be relevant, honestly. And that's why I think it's kind of frustrating when people who will have an opinion aren't involved until the very end. It's like, no, we need to bring them along in this journey. It doesn't serve us to just throw this at them at the end. That just won't help anybody. So I think in involving them in whatever way so that they're at least like,
especially if they want to be, if they're a hands-on CEO, you can't just then throw it at the end and then not expect them to have a ton of input.
Exactly. So I think at the beginning, we do usually say now, who has decision-making power? Because they need to be involved to some extent. However much you all can say about, it's just smart. It makes sense.
So bringing them in at the beginning, finding out who those core people are, and then making sure that they're in the right meetings. And then when you're getting into the creative side of things, working with the art directors, what is that process like? Are you still charging for rounds of revisions, or are you kind of expanding the scope to accomplish more of like specific tangible goals or like value?
We do have very specific scopes always. But I will say it's more of a safety net. And if we do feel like, okay, we just need one more round of revision, we're not going to be like, hey,
there's nothing that kills the vibe faster than a change order for
because it's just like we're all flying high, and then it's like, ooh, now we have to charge you hourly because it's just like, and it's like, I'm not saying that there's not value to that, but we're honestly charging for value. We pad in so that we don't have to come back and like badger them when it's like we're so close to the finish line and it wouldn't serve it. Now, of course, if they're starting to really like disrespect
or
if
they just really want to extend the scope in a large way, that's
different. It's like, oh yeah, sure, we can handle that. We'll just do an add-on scope. And it's like, that's an easy conversation. But if it's just like, hey, like technically you only got 3 rounds of revisions, but you just want these minor adjustments that are totally easy and they aren't like reinventing the wheel, then that's fine. And we really do try and be flexible, because I know when we work with subcontractors, it's like, despite best efforts, sometimes like you find a little gremlin here or there at the very end. And it's like, you just hope that people will be a little flexible as long as you're paying them well. Now, if of course, if they were paying us nickels and dimes, I probably would be like, actually, the scope has reached its limit and now you have to pay us hourly. So it really does depend. But yeah.
But I think that's why it is smart to always tack on whether it's 10 or 20% of what you think it'll take, you would always underbid it, or at least we always did. So it's just tacking that in, knowing that it gives you the
the room to play if
The
you
wiggle
need a
room.
little bit of extra time.
Well, and also for larger clients, we include way more rounds of revisions. For like a 101 package for, small, medium-sized clients, usually like, the initial concepts, 3 directions, 2 rounds of revisions, and then final deliverables. That's it. And we're pretty strict because it's a little bit more budget friendly. But for the big clients, it's always like, that they're gonna have to pass it up the chain, and they're not only doing revisions to get it perfectly ready for them to feel confident to send it to their higher ups, but then those higher ups have changes, and then it's like, and so on and so forth. So you got to include at least 5 rounds.
What I'm hearing is that the process that you've established doesn't change that much. It's just the level of, let's say, people involved on the bigger projects. And then if you're just working with a direct founder or CEO for let's say like a smaller company, then, and just kind of adapting it to their specific needs when you're pricing the project and getting deliverables across, which I think is beautiful, because like people out there in the audience can take that away. You can do that same introducing the strategy and having the core people involved, whether it's a C-suite team, a small team of 2, or even just the founder. Obviously, if you're working directly with one person, they'll be in the meeting. But I think that is, as you're kind of evolving these projects, you can take this away into your daily practice.
One other thing that I will say has been invaluable, and I got to give it to Sagi Haviv. He shared this at, I think it was an Adobe conference, Adobe Max conference, in one of his presentations. They had a slide in their round 1 review, first creative look for brand identity, that pretty much said, you're not going to like it, or something like that. And then they showed a bunch of logos that we all love now. I wouldn't say love, but we all think are good. And it's like, and they're weird. They're fucking weird. They're weird. Logos are weird. They're supposed to be. Like, they have to be.
To be recognizable.
To be recognizable.
Yeah.
And I thought that is so brilliant. And we took that, and I didn't steal it. We made our own version that pretty much said, you're not going to love it at first. Change is not easy. So you have to give yourself time to get used to these options, and remind yourself that we always tend to go for what we're familiar with and what's expected. And that's not what we're trying to do. We all agree we want to do something new, right?
And it actually is almost like, it's like when you tell a kid, like, you won't like this.
You won't,
and then
like
they're like,
this.
I want it. No, I want to try it. I want to try it. It's like, you wouldn't like broccoli, I don't think. It's just for mommy. And then it's like, I want the broccoli. It's just like, it is a bit of reverse psychology, which is so funny.
And you know what the best logos to show are? It's like, show that Visa logo with the weird little wing tip on the V that makes no sense and has no meaning. Show that one. Then show, it's like, I don't know, there's just like tons of, like the McDonald's logo, like the aspect ratio, all the negative space, it's probably not organized well as far as where the little text and the big M icon, but it's like, but it's iconic, and it's like, it's different, and that's good. Anyways, those are 2 really important pages to show before you show the logos.
I think it's time for a little game.
Ooh, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do a couple rounds of Sibling Showdown.
Oh, yes.
So here's the rules of the game. I'm going to ask each of you one individual question. We'll alternate rounds. And if your sibling answers right, they get a point. And if they answer wrong, then the other gets a point. So we'll see who wins at the end of the little game. So we're going to start left to right. So Amy, what is the weirdest thing that Jen does while working? We all have our weird quirks and habits, but what is the most bizarre?
The most obnoxious is she hums with her AirPods in, so it's extremely off tune. And I'm like, I don't know what you're singing, and I don't want any part of it. So I'm trying to listen to my podcast or do my thing. And she's like, so yeah, hands down.
Jen, is this true? Is this the weirdest thing you do? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Amy gets 1 point. Jen, what is Amy's go-to lunch order? Her tried and true.
Oh, In-N-Out, always. I mean, if there was a choice to go out, if you're making your own, it's so sad. It's like instant oatmeal. But I got the right one if we were to go out.
Yeah, if we were to go out.
Well, let's even go a step further. If it's In-N-Out, what is the specific In-N-Out order?
Oh, okay. It's a not a double. What's the other one called? It's just a cheeseburger with grilled onions and fries and a Coca-Cola. That's it.
Coca-Cola. That's it. Ding, ding, ding.
If it was you in college, it'd be 2 fries. God,
In
2
college,
fries and a Coke.
in college, every day of community college, this is how sad I was. I had 2 fries and a Coke And I remember getting to my psychology class one day, and the In-N-Out drive-through guy that worked at In-N-Out was in my class. He goes, 2 fries and a Coke. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was so embarrassed. But yes, 2 fries and a Coke, which is so sad. No protein in that diet. Jeez.
No, it's just the carbs.
Powered by
sugar
carbs.
diet.
Yeah,
Powered by
carbs and
potatoes.
sugar.
Gosh.
There used to be a guy at the California Pizza Kitchen where I was a server. He would come in, it was some waitress's boyfriend. He would come in and collect all the used grease from the fry oil. And he would use it to fuel his car. He had converted his car to run on
Fry oil?
fry oil, like vegetable oil. It was
Damn.
an old diesel Mercedes. I don't know.
That's
This
so
was his
cool.
job, was like retrofitting them. But I was like, this guy, he's figured it out.
Wow.
And he's got an inside woman with his girlfriend.
That's amazing.
Wow, that's brilliant. Back to Amy. What does Jen prefer, coffee or tea? And I guess the answer could be neither. So
Coffee, definitely. Coffee. We're both coffee hounds. Yeah. Coffee with 1 scoop of Ghirardelli white powder. It's the white chocolate powder, and it's so good. They used to
so
have it at my
good.
coffee shop, and they only sell it in the big industrial coffee shop size. And so we just have a big vat of Ghirardelli white chocolate mocha powder, and it's so good.
maybe these questions are too easy. You are twins, so you know each other
It's
pretty
way
well.
too easy. It's like, what's Jen's deepest, darkest secret?
Well, it's like, what, do we have to go there? Like,
Do we have to go? Yeah, it's like, oh man.
Amy, your sister can only bring 1 album with her in her Walkman. What album is she taking?
Oh, okay.
Oh, there's a few good ones.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, shoot. Gosh, this is like a really hard question. And the one thing I can think of is like not right at all. Okay.
Bringing her own record.
That would be so
Yeah.
self-indulgent.
That's really funny.
But I guess there's no one to police you at that point. So
Mm-hmm.
just give in.
Okay. This is so strange because you mostly do like you don't do full albums a lot.
There's only a few. Yeah.
You mostly
And
do
they dominated my Spotify
mixes.
Wrapped this year.
But is it? I feel like it's not the same as mine. Is it? Is that one you're thinking of?
I mean,
Okay. Well, the 1975 Being Funny in a Foreign Language was on repeat in the office this year for
Yes.
sure.
yes.
I'm gonna have to say that mixed with Jen has a Broadway and show tunes playlist that is like when we're on deadline and when we have to get a proof out and it's stress levels high, it's Broadway and show tunes.
Well, it's the
Oh.
same way. It's like you're not
Wow.
going to eat healthy. You're not going to eat healthy when you're on a deadline. You're going to go your old favorites. You're going to do the
Yes.
McDonald's. You're going to do the Big Mac. Well, it's the same for me. It's like if I'm working on something that's high, like
stress.
thought involvement or stress, I can't be listening to new stuff or cool stuff. It's got to be just comfort jams.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So
Well, this is pausing the game for a moment because my mother is an actress, my wife is a performer, and my mom had a theater for kids in our hometown of Taunton, Massachusetts, and we both worked there, my wife and I. And I want to know what are your go-to show tunes? Because my wife will probably sing in the background if you.
oh my gosh.
Oh, I want to hear hers.
Okay,
and
yours.
anything Andrew Lloyd Webber is my go-to. So like Evita, Phantom, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And then Les Mis, of
Les Mis
course.
is quality. We do definitely gravitate more towards
The
those,
classics.
less towards, well, Rodgers and Hammerstein's always
Oh yeah, those are fun.
like
South
Oklahoma,
Pacific,
South
Oklahoma.
Pacific, because I love the movies.
Yeah.
Sound of
Oh,
Music.
okay.
Sound of Music too. But when people, I know there's a lot more like true
Like Sondheim
theater,
or
like
whatever?
Sondheim, and it's Like Sweeney Todd, and I don't know why.
Nah.
It's like when it's like a lot of repetitive, and it's not like melody, like into the woods, like
Yeah.
it's constant. You're just like, okay, I can't get behind
Yeah.
this. Then again, I felt that way about West Side Story, and then I saw Spielberg's movie, and I loved it. I thought Maria was the most annoying repetitive song in the world, and then what's his face sang it?
Yeah. Oh,
And I was
that
like,
was
"Yeah, it's
beautiful.
actually not so bad."
I love that album.
So
Yeah.
I do understand. It's
What
also-
about you guys though?
What we have on repeat all the time. Well, my wife's about to audition for Legally Blonde, so that's what we've been hearing.
Some more
on
modern
repeat.
ones.
Yes.
And
so
I
we have
never
more
heard
modern-
of those songs. So that's because they're all new, like written for the new, right? Like
Yeah,
Am I
so that
right?
was like 2008. So those songs are super catchy. Other things that we're listening to, this is only a couple years old, but Hades Town has some great music. It's a
Okay.
oh, I'm gonna have to save that.
fusion of like kind of blues music, but with
cool.
like very contemporary music as well. It's this modern interpretation of Yeah, Persephone.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a cool Hades town.
That I think you'll enjoy.
I know, because my tastes have not evolved. It's literally just what my mom used to play in
Our
the 90s.
mom used to
Yeah.
play this Broadway
Oh.
playlist, and so that's like pretty
It's
much
only just like pretty
yeah.
much all her stuff.
just
Yeah.
all her stuff. Ooh.
Oh, that's good.
Did you all watch the or I know that this is based on a musical, but the new Matilda movie that's the musical?
One of our friends were putting on a production. They were in a production of Matilda. So we saw it literally last Friday. And the When I Grow Up will like bring me to tears if
I
I'm
love
in
that
the
song. It's my favorite one. That was one of my most played songs.
That's what I was gonna guess
I
for your
know.
album.
And I was so embarrassed. I'm glad you didn't say it. But anyways, just because it's like designers are supposed to have, you know, a certain level of like exclusive taste. And it's like I don't have it in my personal life. But I can present it when it needs to happen. But I think the 1975 is a great album. Yeah, that's a great
And you
album.
liked that one too.
I
so
did like that one too.
Yeah, you definitely get a point.
Oh, did you guys watch? I'm sorry, one last thing. Was it called Theater Camp?
Theater Camp.
Did you watch
the
this movie?
Is that the one on Netflix?
Is it? I think
or
it's on
Hulu.
Hulu or Peacock right
Yeah.
now.
Oh,
have-
if we don't have Hulu or Peacock, so we'll have to find
Okay,
it.
you
Yeah.
have to find
rent
it. It's worth a
because
rent.
It is. It's really
Yeah.
funny.
And the finale. Well, first of all, it's hilarious if you are theater kids, which you are.
if
You'll
you
get
ever
all the
went to
jokes.
music camp or a theater camp,
And
like you're gonna die.
Ben.
Oh yeah.
Ben.
Oh, I can't remember his
from Platt. Dear Evan Johnson.
Platt.
Ben
Yeah.
Platt. He's in it. And the finale song is, first of all, they kind of tease the finale song, and you think, oh no, this is going to be terrible. And then at the end, it is so good.
Yeah.
It's worth a rent. It is.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
Musical theater is like this life, but on steroids and like just personified so much that you can't like not like feel. And like that's, I think that the joy of it, you like feel
Yeah.
whirlwind of emotions. Well,
It is. It's very extra.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
if only was real life was like that, singing and dancing in the
Like a
street,
musical.
spewing
Yeah.
her-
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes. Love that.
super serious. Jen, what is Amy's go-to workout routine?
Oh, you have a pair of 5-pound and 10-pound weights in your room, and you'll just watch well, you've gone through all the more well-produced crime TV. So now you're
exhausted Dateline and Forensic Files. There's no
so now
more.
you're watching like 48 Hours from the 1990s. It's like old 1999 editions of 48 Hours, and then you'll do your like
Then I just
these
do, like-
and your ab roller.
And then I just do my presidential fitness routine, which is like 10 squats, 10 push-ups.
You have like a rope that comes down from your ceiling.
Yeah.
You know how dangerous that was when you used to have to climb a
The
rope to the top
four-story
of the
rope.
gym?
I can't remember when that stopped. Like when did the
I
president?
think probably when someone
Dude,
fell
I-
off the top of the rope onto the slab
No,
on
no.
the gym floor.
No, Britton, I looked it up too because I was like, I remember that so like viscerally, and I was like, that was honestly a great. I thought it was great. That's still my like, barometer for like how to do workouts to this day. But it ended in Obama, basically. It's just if you were curious.
Okay.
And I was so surprised, but because I just thought it was a good, well-rounded thing. But remember that you'd have to do like pull-ups and like,
Yeah,
it was fun. But yeah, that's still how I do my workouts.
I wasn't into fitness at the time, so I probably didn't do too good. But like as I got older now, it's like a daily kind of ritual, if you will. Like trying to get it into like, I don't know. I feel like it keeps me regular. It's not that it makes me happy, but I'm like unhappy if I don't do it, or slightly 10% less happy if I don't do it.
It's so true. You have to move. And as designers, we just sit on our butt all day and do the same repetitive mouse motions. So just to save my arms so that I can design for another decade, I've had to start doing workouts to like strengthen my forearm because it's like unevenly used. And and even my neck, to save my neck, I do tons of yoga neck workouts. And but yeah, my grandma, she would just be like, girls, all you have to do is 10 crunches a day. She was so wild.
she was all about dancing. She
was all about dancing.
Oh, dancing will keep you young. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yep. And she was like the hot item in Bowling Green, Kentucky. She was, a widow with with dancing shoes. So yeah.
Miss Bowling Green, 1954.
Honestly, truly, she was. Ruth Jost was she was an institution. She really was.
Amazing. All the boys would still coyly come up to her and flirt.
Truly, yes. She was a hot commodity.
Back to Amy. We got a few more. Maybe they're not challenging enough. Maybe I failed you on this game show, but we'll keep playing. Who? Oh shit! No. Okay. No, we'll end it there.
Shoot. And then it's like, and thanks for joining us.
That
would be a great way to end it.
I'd love to go into, just to cue us up, about the breakdown of your revenue streams between courses,
I
books.
can answer it real quick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Revenue stream. We do this at the end of every year. We're like we try to be really hands-on with our money, because you can be broken just as quickly as you're made if you're not careful with your money. Like there's lean times, and I think everyone's realizing that now. Everyone thought it was just up, but the economy can crash just as quickly as it goes up, and much faster. So I think it's just really smart to have a lot of savings, have a lot of padding. And for our business, I would say, I think recently we looked, and as of right now, with the bigger clients we've been getting, our fonts are about only 10% of our income, which I was really surprised at, because they do pretty well. And then our shop, I would say, is probably about another 10 to 20% with our book and our courses. And the course in and of itself is probably 5%. It does really well.
Yeah, so it's maybe like 25% from the shop.
So yeah, probably 25% from the shop, and then probably about
60% from brand identity work.
Clients.
That's like new core brand identity work. Let's see, 70, 80. Probably the remainder is
production work,
retainer, and then little one-off stuff for returning clients who are like, oh, I just need a quick this or quick that,
But I think we try to keep it like 60% is new business, because obviously that's just the nature of brand identity work. It's usually new people.
Yeah.
And then, we like to have at least like 30%, if we can, retainer, I would say, wouldn't you say? And then like the shop kind of builds on itself.
Mm-hmm.
And those numbers are a bit vague, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, they didn't add up the second time.
Like they didn't time at all.
The first time, but that's creative math.
It's good to have at least, I think, 20 to 30% retainer work, because then you're not chasing every single thing.
And it doesn't even have to be on retainer, just people who are returning that you've already built rapport with. It's not hard work. The hard work has been established. They're already on a kind of like ongoing master agreement. It's just like we agree to the term, we agree to a new scope, and we just get off the ground. Because onboarding, agreements, all that jazz, getting to know a client, it takes so much effort and time. So
too true.
What is one thing that you're super into outside of the design world that's fueling you up at the moment?
Well, you can go first, because yours is obvious.
For me, it's the music. I hate to, it's harding out about it, but it's so fun, and it's a completely different creative muscle. I tried to find a hobby that was outside of a computer, but I just can't find one.
I know.
So
bowling, dancing.
Mine is like, again, it's just recent, but Jen got a PS4, and then she let me have it, and now it's I've been playing Fallout and Ghost of Tsushima, and like I'm obsessed. And I was always like, video games are a waste of time, and now I'm just like, I'll be like, just 1 hour more. Like I'll leave the office. Sometimes I'll take breaks at work. I'll leave the office. I'll come back. You're still in the same. I'm just refueling my creative juices for this proof. I was a little stuck. So I need help, but I need to also get off a computer. So I need to find. I've been painting again, which has been really fun. So I need to get more into that and off the screen. So,
are there any closing thoughts that you want to give to the audience? Wise words, inspiration, pick-me-ups.
I think always the theme is like, just try something, like just try it, just do it, just make it, do it for fun, do it low stakes, do it for yourself, and share it. Don't be afraid to share it. The worst thing is to just make it and never tell anyone. Then they don't know what you can do. I think just like, don't be too worried about like what you're going to be perceived as, just put it out there. And, I think that's like good advice. Just try something new.
Yeah. I don't know why this is coming to mind, but recently I've been trying a few different things where it's like you have to submit something and then people review it, and then there's like a certain percentage chance. And I'm always curious, like, what is the percentage chance? So like when I was working on the music, you can submit your music to Spotify editors to like include it in a playlist. And I'm like, I wonder what the average acceptance rate is, 20%. Same thing with Adobe fonts. Apparently I asked them, like, what's the percentage likelihood that if you submit to Adobe fonts, you're going to get chosen as, and they said on average 20%. And then I was reading something else, and it was some sort of, again, a pretty prestigious thing that you would, if you wanted to be included, and it was 20%. I'm like, okay, so the general rule of thumb is there's a 1 in 5 chance. That's not bad. That's a really good chance. It actually made me feel a lot better about most things. I'm like, okay, I'm someone, like, I don't know, it's it's not, I don't know, it's likely you'll do it. That's all I'm saying. And if not this time, then you have 5 more shots. You can figure it out.
Beautiful. I love that. I mean, like, when in doubt, just give it a try. And if it is true, the math adds up to 1 in 5. It's pretty damn good.
That's like the new self-help book that Jen's gonna write. It's gonna be called 1 in 5, coming to a bookstore near you. I hope there'll be a Netflix special as well.
Please, no.
and a retreat in,
There'll be a
Palm
new
Springs.
movie, The Secret, 1 in 5.
Yeah.
Incredible. Well, amazing. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time. I really do appreciate it. And I hope that we can do a round 2 and dive super into kind of the breakdown of your business. So should be fun.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for inviting us.
Super fun.
Yeah.
Thanks so much
No,
for
I had a
making
blast.
it.
We're going to be giving a couple ebook copies away of Freelance and Business and Stuff, compliments of Amy and Jen. All you have to do to be entered is like and comment on this video, sharing your favorite insight from the episode. In a couple weeks' time, we'll choose the winner and we will email you your copy of the book. So happy listening.